Hello and good day. In Algebra, we'll be correcting the homework from CO14 before moving on to CO15, which is solving multi-step inequalities. And just to preface that, again, like we saw with two-step inequalities, the relationship or the connection to solving equations, very similar. So we will be combining like terms, we'll be distributing, we'll have variables on both sides, all those things from PO10, but now in an inequality sense, okay? But back to this. Start here by subtracting 5 from both sides. So we have n divided by -2 is less than or equal to -8. When we multiply by -2, will our sign be flipped? Yes, the class says with exuberance. Because when you multiply or divide by a negative number, we are flipping the side of the inequality or of the number line, and so the inequality symbol must also be flipped. So we get n is greater than or equal to 16, and then you need the graph of that, a closed circle at 16 going to the right. This is your solution. You must have all parts of that. Okay, for the test, if you only have the graph, I'm going to take points off because you don't have your solution here. Okay, if you don't have this, if you only have the solution and don't have the graph, I'm going to take points off for not having the graph. So everything inside that box is what you should have for your solution to an inequality. Next one, we'll start by adding 12. So we have -5n is greater than 10. Will we flip our inequality symbol? Yes, we will. Dividing by that -5 is going to flip it. So we get n is less than -2, which is an open circle at -2 going to the left. Everything in that box is necessary for your solution. Okay. The next one, add 7 to both sides is going to be our first step. So we get n divided by 6 is less than or equal to 2. Do we flip our sign here? We do not. We are multiplying by a +6. So we get n is less than or equal to 12, which on our graph is a closed circle at 12 going to the left. Okay. Even though when we add 7, the right side of our solution changes, right? It goes from -5 to +2. Remember that addition and subtraction will never cause our inequality symbol to switch, only when we multiply or divide. So even though we go from negative to positive here, because it was with addition or subtraction, nothing happens to our inequality symbol. Questions on those three? I know it's hard to come back when you're still on your sugar high from Halloween, but anything? No? Okay. Next three, down a little further. Not quite that far. We've got 25 plus 8n is greater than -7. Start by subtracting 25 from both sides. That gives us 8n is greater than -33, right? No, 32. See, I'm still on sugar high too. 32. Okay. Divide both sides by +8, so is our sign going to flip? No. So we get n is greater than -4. Which is an open circle. Oh my gosh. Oh my gosh. Open circle at -4, going to the right. Questions on that one? Middle one, add 30 to both sides. Again, is opposite operations. 9n is greater than or equal to 45. Flip our sign here? Nope. Divide both sides by +9. We get n is greater than or equal to 5, which is a closed circle at 5, going to the right. And lastly, we're going to subtract 14 from both sides to start. And that leaves us with -n/7. Okay? Make sure that you brought that sign down with the n divided by 7. It belongs to it. We didn't do anything with it when we subtracted 14. And so we get -n/7 is greater than -3. And because that negative sign can really belong to any part of the fraction, it doesn't matter whether it's written kind of in the front middle like it is here, or if we give it to the numerator, only, Or what we're going to do, give it to the denominator only. Okay, all three of those things mean the same thing. And the reason why we're going to give it to that denominator is because now, what do we have to multiply by to get n by itself? -7. Okay, multiply by -7, which gives us n by itself. If we kept the negative sign with the n and only multiply by +7, well, now that's a -n, right? And we want +n by itself. So you do need to multiply by both the 7 and that negative sign. Our inequality symbol does flip here because we are multiplying by a negative. And so we get n is less than 21, which is an open circle at 21 going to the left. Okay. Questions on those three? If you are finding that you got a few of these wrong, again, try and identify what was wrong. Did you get the right solution but then graphed it wrong? Then focus on the graphs. Did you get the wrong solution but your graph was right? Based on what you had, like if you got n is greater than +4 here and that's what you had as your graph, then your graph isn't the issue. It was the solving portion, which goes back to opposite operations or flipping the sign. So try and identify which piece of this is where you're making your mistakes, because it's with multi-step concepts. Just saying, well, I don't get anything. Well, that's not probably true. It's probably just one or two things that you might need to focus on. Good? Okay. The word problems. And again, notice how I did not say you needed to set up the inequality here. That's not what I was looking for. It's problem solving, but then because it's a range, representing your answer with a graph. So you and three friends decide to go in on a 15-book series. The four of you can spend a total of no more than $212 and plan on dividing the cost evenly. Use a graph to describe the cost per book the four of you can afford. Who wants to explain how they tackled this? Anybody feeling confident? Delvin. Who are you? Delvin. Cook. Yeah.
I did 212 divided by 15.
And what'd you get?
14.1333.
Okay. And so since we're talking about price, we'll round it to nearest cents. All right. And that was your final answer?
Well, I rounded it to 10, so I said B has to be less than or equal to $14.
Okay. So we would probably want to keep it as 1413 just because it's dealing with pennies, so going to nearest hundredth. But yeah, what this is saying is that if you have $200 to spend and you're going to be buying 15 books, then 212 divided by 15 means you can spend no more than $14.13 per book. Okay, so $14.13 or less, right? Some of you may have taken that 1413 and divided it by 4 to show the individual cost. Like each of the four of you will contribute this amount to get to that 1413. And what's 1413 divided by 4? I heard someone say, yeah. What did you get for that? Whoever did it. About 3 something? 3.53, that sounds about right. Okay. So you could also have, if you went for the individual, $3.53 per person per book. Okay. Or just $14.13 per book. Right? But the key here was to, figure out that this is the total. You're dividing that total into 15 parts for the 15 books. So 1413 does that. That's how much per book. But then if you went one step further and said, well, there are 4 people here, so 1413 divided by 4, that 353 is the price per person per book. Okay, so either answer would be acceptable. The next one we pretty much did together. I think we had 4m plus 25 is less than or equal to 70, right? Is that where we left off for that one? Okay. So you subtract 25 from both sides, and we get 4m is less than or equal to 45. And when you divide 45 by 4 to get m by itself, you get m is less than or equal to 11.25. Which means that we can put 11.25 songs or less on the CD. Does that make sense? Putting 11.25 songs on a CD? No, you can't put 0.25 of a song, right? Doesn't work that way. So when you made your graph here, what number did you use as your solution number? Will? 11. Because you can't, that 0.25 doesn't make any sense for the context of the question, because you can't put a fourth of a song on. And so it's 11 songs or less. Okay. And then lastly, you spend $56 on supplies to make wooden ornaments and plan to sell the ornaments for $8.50 each. Use a graph to describe the possible numbers of ornaments that you can sell to make a profit. So like we talked about, if you spend $56 on supplies and sell one ornament, did you make $8.50 overall? No. You lost, $47.50, right? Because you spent more than you brought in. So what inequality did maybe some of you write for this one, or what was the process that you used to solve it? Delvin.
How many times I did 56 divided by 850, and whatever extra I would just add one extra ornament.
So what did you get for 56 divided by 850? 7. So it didn't work out to be exactly 7. What's the actual? And I'll get to what you're saying, Caleb, because you're right. But what's the actual value of 56 divided by 850? 6.5. Okay, which means that to make exactly $56, you would need to sell 6.5 ornaments. Are you selling 0.5 of an ornament? No. So since you can only sell wholes of ornaments, 6 ornaments is going to put you below 56. 7 ornaments will put you above 56. So in this case, you need to sell 7 or more. Okay, 6.5 wouldn't make any sense here because you can't have half an ornament. Unless someone drops it and it breaks, I suppose, give half. But anyway, okay. All right. Questions, comments, concerns, complaints, comments, congratulations, or criticisms on this? Okay. Moving on to CO15. The biggest thing from CO14, the inequality symbol flipping rule and the graphing, is basically what you need to carry over to CO15 here. Because you look at these and you say, oh, I've got variables on both sides. I know how to do that. Back from PO10. Oh, I've got parentheses. I know how to distribute. Back from PO10. Here I've got variables on both sides again. The last one here, combining like terms. You've done all of these skills already. We're just going to the next level, which is bringing back, all those different things. So let's see what we have in the store for us here. We've got several to do, multi-step inequalities. Pick one from this first set of 4 you'd like to talk about together here. Pick one from the first set of 4. Morgan. The last one. 16n plus 4 minus 11n is less than or equal to 49. Don't let the inequality symbol intimidate you, because remember, like we said, the process for solving this is the same as an equation until you get down to that, am I multiplying or dividing by a negative, right? Then you got the flip thing, and then the graph. So if this was 16n plus 4 minus 11n equals 49, what would you do first? And since it's multi-step, you have to run through your checklist. Am I combining like terms? Are there parentheses? Am I distributing? Are there variables on both sides? William? Right, 16 and negative 11, right? We've got terms that we can combine. And so you're going to do the same thing here. Okay? 16n minus 11n gives us 5n plus 4 is less than or equal to 49. The inequality symbol hasn't come into play yet, right? It's just like an equation. What would your next step be if that was 5n plus 4 equals 49? Kirk? Subtract 4. Okay? And so we would get 5n is less than or equal to 45. What would your next step be if that were an equal sign? Joey?
You would divide the 5.
Divide both sides by 5, right? And then here's where you have to remember that you are dealing with an inequality symbol. And so if that 5 were negative, then you have to flip it, right? In this case, it is not, so we just leave it less than or equal to. And then, instead of just being done, if it were an equation, our solution gets graphed and is less than or equal to 9. Okay? So going back to PO10 and kind of reviewing those strategies that we talked about there, they're going to apply here too. You really don't care that's an inequality symbol until you get down to this last step of just getting rid of that coefficient and whether it's positive or negative. Okay? To check this, you do the same thing as we did in CO14. Pick a number that is within that range. What's my favorite number to test? 0. Okay, 0 is less than 9. So if I plug in 0 here, it should work. And the reason why I like 0 so much is because what happens to a coefficient term when you plug in 0? What happens to 16 times n when I put in 0? Cancels out. What happens to 11 times n, or negative 11 times n, when I put in 0? It dies? Whoa. No, it just cancels out. Okay? So by plugging in 0, I can eliminate all those variable terms because they equal 0, and I'm left with positive 4 is less than or equal to 49. Yep. And so I can be confident that my answer is right. Okay? So that's why I personally like to plug in 0 to check, because 0 is within this range. It'll make the inequality true, and I can just eliminate all those variable terms because it's 0 anyway. Okay? Pick another one from the remaining 3 in this section you'd like to do together. Miranda. The third one, variables on both sides and a fraction. Whew, it's your lucky day. Okay? What do you think we should do first here? This one's a little bit tricky. Because you have that fraction, our first step is going to be getting rid of that fraction. And how do we do that? How do we unfractionize? Adam. Right, we're going to multiply by the denominator to cancel it out. And the tricky part about this right side here, multiplying by 5, is on the left side, it just cancels out, gives us n. But what's being multiplied by 5 on the right side? Just the 8n, just the negative 14. Peter? Yes. And Blake? Both of them, right? If we're multiplying that entire side by 5, we have to multiply both terms. Okay? Which means, essentially what we've got here is we've got 8n minus 14 in parentheses, we're multiplying that by 5. And what is our process for when we've got parentheses with a coefficient out in front? Distribute. Okay? So 5 times 8 gives us 40n. 5 times negative 14 is negative 70. And so now we've got n is greater than 40n minus 70. Nice choice, Miranda. All right. Did you follow that? Right? If you've got a fraction in an equation, if you're able to, undo that first. And we do that by multiplying both sides by 5. So on the left side, it just cancels out. On the right side, because we are multiplying that whole thing by 5, we do need to distribute. Now, of course, this looks like it's going to be messy. And you're right, it is going to be messy. But now that we've got variables on both sides, what is one potential next step? One potential next step, Sepa. Sure. If we want to move all of our n's over to the left side, which is probably the most efficient way to solve this, the least number of steps, we're going to subtract 40n from both sides to cancel it out. And so 1n minus 40 of them gives us negative 39n. And then on the right side, we're left with negative 70. What next? Continue our ops operations. Gino. Sorry? Not yet. Yes, the answer is yes, but nothing that we've done will flip it yet because we haven't done any multiplying or dividing by a negative number, right? We subtracted 40n's here, but subtraction or addition will never cause us to flip. Our next step, dividing by negative 39 to get n by itself, here's where we will need to flip our inequality symbol because we are dividing by that negative number. Okay, so on the left side, n is by itself. Our greater than symbol becomes a less than symbol because we divided by that negative 39. And on the right side, negative 70 divided by negative 39 is about the ugliest fraction you'll ever see. I mean, my goodness, when would you ever use that in anything? But it's still a value. So the negative signs cancel out, right? Negative divided by a negative will be a positive. 70 39ths can't be simplified. And so there's our solution. N is less than 70 39ths. To graph this, open circle at 70 39ths, going to the left. Let's check this, shall we? What number are we going to use for this? Because it's my favorite one. Negative 0. How about just 0? But yeah, since 0 is less than 70 39ths, we can use it. So we've got 0 divided by 5 instead of n divided by 5. 0 divided by 5 is greater than 8 times 0 minus 14. And we see why I like 0. What's 0 divided by 5? 0. What's 8 times 0? 0. What am I left with on the right side? Negative 14. Is 0 greater than negative 14? Yes, it is. Okay. Great number to test. All right, so the other two that we did not do yet, the first one is variables on both sides. We had an example of that here. Okay, just get them all on the same. And the second one is with distributing, but we also had an example of that here. And if you need to look back at PO10 for how to do those things, how to deal with that, that's where you want to look. Okay. Down below, you may have heard about situations when there's either no solution or infinite solutions. We ran across this in PO10 as well. With inequalities, they occur when all variables cancel out, just like an equation. If the resulting inequality is false, there is no solution. If it's true, then there are infinite solutions. So just like equations, we look at this, 8n minus 4 is greater than 8n plus 7, and that should kind of trigger the thought that this is a special one. Because we have the same number of variables on both sides. And why does that, what's significant about having the same number of variables on both sides? What's going to happen? William? They're going to cancel out. Because if I subtract 8n's to move them over to the other side, well, I end up with 0 on both. So when those variables cancel out, I'm left with -4 is greater than 7. Is -4 greater than 7? No. And so there is no possible value for n that's going to make the inequality true. Just like an equation. The parallels here, I hope that you are seeing them. That's going to make CO15 a lot easier, seeing those parallels. Let's see, the next one here. 3n plus 2 plus 4n is less than or equal to 7n plus 6. My left side can be simplified. I've got 3n's, and I'm adding 4n's. Total, that gives me 7n's, right? 3 plus 4. 7n plus 2 is less than or equal to 7n plus 6. My 7n's will cancel out because I've got the same number on both sides. And I'm left with 2 is less than or equal to 6. True or false? True. Therefore, remember this is that symbol, okay, for infinite solutions are all real numbers. Any number that I plug in there is going to make the inequality true. Because if I start with 7n's and I plug in any number for n and I add 2 to the left, I'll end up with less than if I added 6. So it's always going to be true. Okay? Then the second page. Actually, do I want you to do the second page? That was more of a question asking myself. Let's look at exactly what we have here. I mean, we only have 6 of them. Oh, it's not lunchtime quite yet. Then we have some word problems down below also. Tell you what, finish the front page. So the 2 that we didn't do up at the top and the 1 that we didn't do at the bottom. And then of these 6, I'd like you to choose 1 from each row. See what I did there? So 1 from the first row, just to guarantee that I guess you wouldn't have to do a fraction if you wanted to skip on both of them, but 1 from each row, so a total of 3, but you can't do the first 3. You have to tackle at least one on the bottom row. So total of 6 questions for homework. Don't worry about the word problems for tomorrow. So finish the front page and then 1 from each row on the back side. Is that fair? Well, since rows only go straight across, this would be a column. If we went down, it'd be a column. Okay. So total of 6 questions for homework for tomorrow. I feel like, in the spirit of Christmas, that is fair. I know, but if people treated each other in the spirit of Christmas year round, our world would be a better place. That's our math, folks.